Fix awkward first dates. Look, a specimen in progress. Let's take a closer look. We have to be very quiet so they don't hear us.
So, how's it going?
Good.
What do you want to do?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay.
They're home. Let's follow them to the door. You weren't in the door.
It's fun tonight.
If I was a flower growing wild and free, all I'd want is you to be my sweet honeybee. And if I was a tree growing tall and green...
Awkwardness is something that penetrates all of our lives. We hear the word used every day, whether we are talking about someone who is awkward, something that is awkward, or the stereotypical awkward moment. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines awkwardness as lacking social grace and assurance. However, the colloquial applications of this adjective do not appear to be restricted by the definition, but rather a catch-all term that can be applied to any scenario. As teenagers, we are very familiar with the concept of awkwardness and have set out to define awkwardness and discern the reason it has become a word and idea that permeates our daily lives.
Scientifically, awkwardness stems from developmental or social anxiety disorders. Asperger's syndrome, autism, and social phobias are often the root of seemingly awkward behaviors. We interviewed Dr. Joseph Selwan to find out more about high-functioning autism.
Okay, well, I'm a psychologist, and I treat children, adolescents, and adults. The treatment involves individual work, depending on the age of the client, as well as parent families and groups. I do a lot of work with developmentally handicapped, and I run some groups for kids that have social problems, Asperger's, and high-functioning autism. So that's kind of and I do a lot of work for the court. When we talk about pervasive developmental disorders, and that includes autism, and includes Asperger's, everybody really is different. Okay, so there's a whole continuum of severity from mild to severe, and everybody's wired a little bit differently. Just like I assume you guys are average students, but you all have your different temperaments, different personalities. But there are some commonalities. When we talk about autism, we're talking about individuals who typically have had intellectual deficits, oftentimes behavioral problems, but they're very rigid in the way they're thinking. They often have obsessive type thoughts and behaviors, very repetitious. The more severely involved tend to line things up the same way, tend to repeat the same behaviors over and over and over again. And then missing the social cues are really important, especially for eye contact. You'll notice that in the pervasive developmental disabilities, autism in particular, and Asperger's, oftentimes there's poor eye contact. There's difficulty, what they call pragmatic language, being able, there's English skills, language skills, but they miss the subtle nuances.
Right, moles, lesions, or other skin conditions. Soup tattoo on right buttock.
Sheldon, look, I am scared and in a lot of pain. Could you please take a break from being you for just a minute and try being, I don't know, comforting?
I'm sorry. There. Everything's going to be fine. Sheldon's here.
That's much better.
Well, there's some interesting research that I'm just going to throw in, that they found that the more severely handicapped autistic individuals, they're not bullied like the more mild forms of Asperger's, because other people recognize that, hey, something's wrong here. Okay, I mean, it's obvious that the behavior is a little, very much unusual. But with Asperger individuals, they look, and for the most part, act normal. I mean, they have average ability, but because they tend to obsess over certain things over and over and over again, you may be at the lunch table and you might be talking about different topics, but there's one individual just wants to keep talking about this Madden football 2012, you know, there's one character over and over and over again. So that brings unusual attention. And oftentimes kids, and they're oftentimes more socially immature and emotionally immature, so they just, it's sort of like conversations going around a merry-go-round, and they have a hard time getting on.
These disorders all contribute to very severe cases of awkwardness. It is apparent that we encounter awkward situations daily, especially with people perfectly adapted to life in society. So what is it about humans with no genetic basis that cause us to behave awkwardly?
I laugh in awkward situations. I'm very immature in them, so I laugh.
I'm actually really terrible with awkward situations, and I kind of avoid awkward situations. If I see one coming, I just leave, or I look away, and I don't listen. I'm actually terrible with awkward situations.
Some people just say it's awkward, but like in case that would make things more awkward, you just try to change the subject usually, or preoccupy yourself if the person's like extremely bothered.
I just stand there and just look at people.
They're doing all kinds of imaging studies, looking at the brain of individuals who have developmental disabilities, and they're beginning to identify certain areas, but there's no one factor that's been identified. It's considered a neurobiological disorder, which means the wiring in the brain's a little off, and genetics appears to be part of the problem, but they haven't really, everybody's a little bit different. There's some folks who used to believe that it was the mercury in vaccinations that cause autism, and there are a lot of parents to this day who argue very strongly, but their medical research does not support that. So there's a lot of controversy. There's another category, social anxiety, which is probably one of the most common disorders that we deal with. It's very common, social anxiety, and it ranges again from mild to severe. In a mild range, it might be somebody who might have a fear of speaking, for that matter, you know, get in front of a crowd. But in a more severe case, it would be somebody who would have a hard time going into the lunchroom at school because of the noise and all the people. They feel like they're very conspicuous. And, you know, going back to your first question about the kind of work we do here, or what I do, you know, anxiety disorders and depression are two of the biggest areas that we'll work with.
Is something out of the ordinary, not expected, and weird.
Awkward is like uncomfortable, doesn't really like fit what you would think, and makes you like feel weird.
So how do you... Awkward is quietness at unwanted times.
I think awkwardness is really quiet, uncomfortable situations.
Like now. I feel awkward just like when the situation's uncomfortable, or when people don't know what to say, or they're saying things that like don't fit the mood. And
awkward is when you don't know how to act. like right now.
Social awkwardness is when you really don't know how to talk to people and you're just standing there and you have no reason for talking to people. Apply it to a lot of situations because we really don't know how to talk to friends or a person that you like.
I think it just gives us a sense of security in things that are normal, that appear to be normal to us. And so, like, some things that aren't normal make us feel uncomfortable, and the reason we point them out is because we like to feel comfortable in awkward situations, and it's really difficult. So, yeah.
Because it's funny sometimes, I know, even though I'm terrible with them, like when I laugh about them, they make me feel better.
Yeah, I guess they make you feel better about yourself because you laugh.
Makes me feel better about myself.
You point it out because it's a relief after you point it out. Like, if you don't point out the awkward situation, you just like let it.
Because I know sometimes like people just like disagree with what the person's saying, and just, I don't know. That's a good question, Abby.
What could I miss? Oh, it's very easy. You're both very pretty. You have green eyes. Are they? They're not blue. Now don't tell me that. Look at me a little closer. They're green.
Awkward situation I was at was when I went to a country club with my friend and they were having an RV party, just when they all dress up like poor people and party in RVs. And it was awkward because they reminded me of my family reunion.
Awkward situation, like a month ago, I was at a restaurant and my brother's ex-girlfriend was my waitress.
Awkwardness continues to emerge as a cultural theme. It is a main theme in several television shows, such as The Big Bang Theory, The Office, and Awkward. We asked Dr. Salwan about awkwardness in the media.
Well, I think at some point in time, we all are a little bit socially awkward.
Yeah.
We all maybe stick our foot in our mouth when we wish we didn't.
Mhm.
And so I think some of these TV shows play on our biggest fears, right?
Mhm.
We sort of identify with that and we're able to laugh at somebody else. Ha ha ha, it's not me, you know.
Mhm.
And I think any TV show or any movie, they draw you in because they tap into something we're feeling.
Mhm.
So I think that, you know, these shows that you're referring to probably and especially teenage years, very socially awkward, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the movies and shows you're probably talking about are geared towards teenagers. And, you know, I mean, you take a lot of risk, right, with your friends, going on dates and all that stuff. And so it can be awkward.
Yes. Awkwardness is context-based, especially in the media. The media often takes two normal situations but puts them together in a way that is abnormal, causing awkwardness.
Thank you.
Jim, can you come in here for a sec? What was that printer we were looking at?
Whether it is biologically derived or just an abnormal gesture or situation in public, awkwardness continues to prevail as a leading trend in the media and a seemingly uncomfortable feeling that we may always have to endure.
I'm sticking with you, 'cause I'm made out of glue. Anything that you might do, I'm gonna do too. You held up a stagecoach in the rain.